Namaste. We are with Gautamji once again for the next podcast episode. Gautam, thank you so much for your time as always.
My pleasure, Nick.
So, Gautam, today I wanted to discuss with you a rather serious topic which may affect aspirants in different phases of their life or their journey. And it essentially is about the harmonizing of one's thoughts, words, and actions. Because Gautam, I've felt when there is a disharmony here where one may think something else, do something else, say something else, it causes a lot of internal, like a person is almost torn apart in one way, and not being able to say no when you mean to say no can cause a lot of discord in relationships, and this indirectly I feel affects someone's spiritual journey. So, if you could talk about this aspect of one's life.
Sure. This example you gave, I think you might need to elaborate more on it. But in general, if I take a very common example, let's say you're a devotee of Baba, okay? And I've used this example before. Let's say you are in a government position. Could be anywhere, could be at a local level, state level, whatever, doesn't matter. Now, you are tempted with taking bribes because such is the nature of the system here in India, right? Now, supposing you're a devotee of Baba and Baba has clearly said, I have read it in the Satcharita, I think, that if you are in a government position, do not take a bribe.
Yes.
Okay? Now, and you claim that you are a devotee of Baba. Now, on the other hand, you are taking a bribe. So, in such a case, your three aspects, thought, word, action, are not synchronized because they are more a matter of convenience. When you want to be a devotee, you're conveniently a very big devotee of Baba. You'll go around distributing prasad and all that. But when it comes to a wrongful action, in this case taking a bribe, then you forget your devotion to Baba. So, it is not synchronized. But Nick, now what is important here is that it requires a high degree of awareness for this synchronicity to happen.
Correct.
Because most of us are caught up in the Maya. We operate out of selfishness and convenience, and we will remember the teachings when convenient to us. So, like you pointed out, it is a serious subject, and it is not everyone's cup of tea, this subject, because everyone, knowingly or unknowingly, is not in sync with these three aspects. And it is a great idea, this video, because it's just pointing in that direction, that it would really to really live the essence of the teaching and live the master's command, they have to be synchronized. Because you're delaying your own spiritual progress, nobody else's. I mean, in fact, this is being selfish. True selfishness is to make sure you're doing all that you can do for your own spiritual journey.
Correct.
Because everything else is transient in life. Your relationships are transient, your relationship to money is transient. But what happens is, to take care of all that, you compromise on your relationship with Baba.
Yes.
That is what happens.
So, Gautam, let's take another example. Say there are two devotees of Baba that come together and a friendship is formed. Now, for example, if one is a little over-friendly than the other, and one devotee is not able to draw a boundary by saying no, and out of the feeling of just feeling obliged, this friendship may continue and then turn sour at some stage. But I feel even learning how to say no when you mean to say no in a nice way, as Baba said, treat everyone with courtesy. But at the same time, it does not mean Baba says make everyone sit on your head. So, could you talk about this gentle balance of being honest? Because see, yes, for example, if it's a life and death situation, then you would compromise and go ahead and help whoever or whatever. That is a different situation. But it also makes me questions one integrity if you wind up doing things when your heart is not in it, because Baba would say if you do something, do it properly or don't do it at all.
Right.
So it is then a very compromised sort of living if this becomes a habit. So I feel it's very important if we can address this.
Yes, you see, I mean, this not being able to say no to someone, for example, is because you are afraid what will the person think of me if I say no. This is a mask we wear. We want approval, we want validation. So even if we don't like deep in our hearts to do something, but the other person suggests, let's go here, let's do that, we say yes, even though we don't want to, because we don't want to upset the other person.
Correct.
Why don't we want to upset the other person? Because he will love me less. That is how the mind works, you see. Now, if they are Guru Bandhus, which means if they follow the same Guru, generally one will see that they all have spiritual inclinations. There will be a common bond, which is a spiritual bond. As far as that is concerned, it's great, because even masters like Siddha Rameshwar Maharaj have said that once you are on the journey, you will yourself see that you don't want to waste time with idlers and in gossip, and all that will drop away. And if it's not dropping away, that means you're really not serious about your journey, right? Now let's assume that there are two friends, both are on the spiritual journey, both following the same master's teachings. Now, if one of them is still not living the teachings as much as the other is aware of his or her level of living the teaching. They have to decide for themselves that no, I don't want to go here with this friend, because I'd rather spend it on contemplation or doing other things. And like you rightly said, we have to be polite. So it is very important to take a stand, because I would actually backtrack a bit and say that next time you want to say no but you're not able to, investigate yourself. What is making you say yes when you don't want to do something? And you will come to this conclusion that you are trying to be a people pleaser, and to come back into your own power, to your own core. It's okay if people don't like you sometimes.
Correct.
You have to be comfortable with that, because see, your relationship with yourself comes first. Is your relationship with yourself a healthy relationship? And then if it is healthy, it will reflect outwards, and you will be quite surprised that people will respect your decision to say no, and they will respect you more.
Absolutely.
That is what happens.
Absolutely. And Gautam, if one aspect I also contemplate on often is, Baba is the consciousness in all. Each individual has a conscience. So, when, say, someone comes to you asking for something, say, as I said, if it's a life and death situation, you naturally, automatically will help without thinking. But your conscience, if you're in tune with it, will guide you, for example, because sometimes you're even doing harm to yourself saying no, because it's a very compromised state of living in that sense if it goes on for years.
Yes. But see, Nick, the thing is, we all play out our patterns. Patterns come from deep-rooted conditioning. So it is the advanced spiritual seeker of truth who will be able to look at his or her own patterns. Someone who's not advanced on a journey will not even go through this process which you have referred to. If they can do it, they will make tremendous leaps in their journey, because then what will happen, they will look at all their patterns across all relationships. You see, because one person represents the same aspect which the others represent.
Yes.
So next time you find yourself saying something to a person and inside you feel the opposite, reflect on it, see why you think you said it, what is it based on, what fears is it based on, what is it in the past which makes you do these things, and you will find that if you re-examine your reactions, your patterns, it will impact all the relationships in your life in a positive way.
Yes.
So it is actually a very deep spiritual practice.
Yes. Gautam, Paramhans Ramakrishna Dev had said the only penance in the Kali Yuga is to be truthful, to follow the path of truth. And I feel this in one way. See, many people have this misconception that truth only means speaking the truth, which you can mechanically do. And worse still is, some people may speak the truth in a way where it may hurt another, which is wrong. However, this also comes down to being truthful as a sadhana, if one takes it that way. That if you have thoughts in your head which are not, you may pretend to put up a face, it is deceitful in one way. What is inside is not on the outside.
Yes. That is the nature of the ego, to deceive, you see. And so, if one is following this teaching through and living the teaching, which is a phrase I like to use, living the teaching, then you have to be prepared that the ego is going to take a bashing. Are you willing for that? Or do you put your defenses up immediately if someone threatens you or says something that you don't like? And vice versa. Do you always have to say things to people which sound nice to them and you don't like saying? Even that is possible. So the ego has to be prepared for the rough ride, because for the truth to shine, all the deceptions of the ego have to be laid bare. And if that happens, it's a very beautiful journey.
And Gautam, also sometimes accepting that one may have been wrong. Like, say, if one has invested a lot of time in a relationship, in a particular sadhana without the guidance of a guru, or has invested where they derive their sense of self from something.
Yes.
And then upon reflection they realize that, oh, this may not be true. To honestly see that yes, I could have been wrong, or this was part of my journey and now it's time to let go, also takes, I feel, a lot of honesty and that openness to be accepting that yes, I could have been wrong, which I feel is another tough one.
It's a tough one because mostly people don't realize it. I'll give you an example that happened this morning with my mother. My mother is, people consult her for issues regarding Kundalini and chakras and spiritual awakening. Now, one gentleman from the US has been chasing her to talk to her, to ask a question. Keeps on calling. Finally, she took his call.
Yeah.
Now, his question was not really a question. He said, oh, I've had these experiences and that experience, etc. I can't make sense of it. Will I get enlightened? Okay. My mother's reply was, are you on a specific path? Are you following a master? Are you following a teaching which takes you through the process so that if something happens, you can ask for guidance? And his reply was, no, I'm having all these experiences, so I don't think I need a master. You see, this is what happens. This arrogance comes in. Then you feel you know the way best. So she realized there's no point in taking this discussion further. So she told him, look, the journey of spiritual awakening and Kundalini and chakras is not to be taken lightly. If you want to do it seriously, you have to follow a due process and come under the umbrella of someone who has walked the talk.
Yes.
If you want to do it on your own, do it on your own. He said, yes, I'll do it on my own. And he put the phone down. That is the arrogance of the spiritual ego. It feels it has got some free samples and then it takes it that, oh, I have experienced this, I have experienced that, and is overconfident. So there are many pitfalls on this path. And like you said at the start, thought, word, deed, if you look at it yourself, it's a very simple process that what I'm feeling inside, is it the same thing that I'm saying? And is my act reflecting that? It is actually a spiritual sadhana in a sense. Even if you in the evening look back in the day, the people you met or you spoke to on the phone, and just reflect whether all this synchronized or not. And if you realize it didn't, don't beat yourself up, but be aware that in this instance, yes, I didn't. In that instance, I did. That awareness itself will take you very far.
Yes. An aspect which is slightly at a tangent but very related to this is also if one reflects, sometimes people have fancy thoughts about themselves, like a self-image, and their reality of their life might be slightly different from that. So even using this as a sadhana, for example, one may have an idea that they are great devotees of Baba or whatever on their path, but then does it show in their action, where in terms of either the sadhanas or living the teaching, or if they begin to even contemplate and question that, because even the very awareness where you may realize that I'm probably not as committed to Baba as I may think I am, that
Sure.
itself is a great opening and honest starting point, which could be the point of transformation.
Yes, very well said. Very well said. That's a good point.
So Gautam, I feel this is an important thing that devotees can reflect on. Could you give any few more pointers or anything that I may not have asked you that you could leave them with?
Not really, except like we said in the middle, being true to oneself. Because you see, as it is, this world is very illusory. There are layers and layers of complications, relationships which are mired in so much doership, give and take, and so on. So, to be truthful to yourself is to act from this position that everything is synchronized. And it is actually not an easy practice, but for your audience who have so far been drawn to the teachings and are contemplating,
Yes.
are thinking about it, seeing the difference it may have had in their lives, it's yet another beautiful offering you are giving them to look at this also.
So wonderful, Gautam. Thank you for this discussion and your wonderful insights. And I hope we can continue with this podcast series and cover these various aspects of little contemplations or reflections.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes, and thank you, Gautam. Even your insights on the new Sai Satcharit, the audiobook, is very well received.
Yeah, that is a fabulous project. You see, what is important, Nick, is I'm very happy about this new Sai Satcharit, because I don't know if I mentioned it in a podcast earlier, but see, everyone, every generation, new generation, comes with a certain level of awareness and understanding. So, teachings themselves have to be fluid and changed so that they are best absorbed by the current generations. Of course, the core has to be the same. We are not saying to modify the teaching itself, but the presentation.
Yes.
Because I have read this even in an ancient Tibetan course which is 300 years old, that new teachers will keep coming and will add their insights into it. And that is how the course stays relevant. It has to stay relevant. So it is a very great service that you are doing with this Satcharit, and also using today's mediums. Earlier we had only printed books. Now you are using audio files, you are doing so much with it, and it will be a very great contribution to the literature on Baba. And of course you've got Vinima, who's also helping you with this project, and so it kind of gets a stamp of historical authority, and it will go very far. It's my wish.
How sweet, how sweet. I really wish, because Gautam, the very fact that today with the audiobook, that people can hear it, even say when they are cooking, cleaning, walking around at home, going out for a walk, driving,
Yes.
it just makes it accessible. And the very fact that it is a literal translation of Hemant Pantji's original work.
Right.
And you made a very good point, because what I felt is, going back in the 1930s, he wrote this book to an audience, for an audience which was very different. And at that time there was no television, there was no, people had the time. And today, we've taken everything essential from it, not change the leelas or words at all. So, for the reader to, or the person listening to know these are Baba's words. And in the digital book, what is, something that could be very helpful is we are actually taking his poetic verses in Marathi of Baba's words. So
Okay.
even visually, when devotees see it, even if they don't speak Marathi, on an energetic level, it is exactly Baba's script or words that they see,
Right.
and those are word to word translated. So I do feel it's the closest one can come to hearing Baba.
Right.
And if devotees can use this tool, that this is the hope and prayer that their minds, hearts, and souls are totally in sync with Baba, and eventually merge into him.
Yeah, beautiful.
So wonderful, Gautam. Thank you so
Okay,
much.
okay,
And we look forward to the series to continue that with you.
Yes, same here.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.